Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get Acclimated, part of the Altitude Sickness podcast. I am Tony, and today is episode 5 of this mini-series of where I break down new Rockies acquisitions, whether that be via trade, via free agent signing, or however the Rockies get them. And today we're going to be talking about TJ Rumfield. I'm not entirely sure how to say it. I think it's Rumfield. However it is, that the Rockies acquired earlier this week from the New York Yankees in exchange for right-handed pitcher Angel Chivilli. So he's a minor league player, and so we're going to be going over all of his stuff today. Again, if you have not heard this series before, pretty much I break down just the baseline stats that most, all players will have, and then I go into a few things that I like about him, and then we'll go from there. But without further ado, we'll just get right on into it. So like I said, he was acquired in a trade from the Yankees. He's a minor league first baseman from Richmond, Virginia. He was drafted in the 12th round in 2021 by the Phillies out of Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University. So that's pretty cool. So he was drafted by the Phillies and then found his way in the Yankees organization, and then has found his way to the Rockies organization. A big thing is he bats left, but he throws right, so another lefty bat in the farm system. So always good to just have a nice supply of lefty bats. And so we'll go over his stats again because he only played in the minor leagues last year, only in AAA. That's what we're gonna have to go off of, which is totally fine. It's just most things, this is just all these stats are just going to be AAA numbers. So his stats last year, in 587 plate appearances, he batted .285, 378, 447 for a 825 OPS and a 121 WRC plus, or weighted runs created plus, with 16 home runs, 87 RBI, and he had 70 walks to 108 strikeouts, or a 11.9% walk percentage and only an 18.4% strikeout percentage. So that's a big thing with this guy, is he's not going to show you a ton of power, especially coming from the first base position, but he does have very good plate discipline, and he does not strike out. He's a big contact-oriented hitter, which, the Rockies, that's clearly what the front office is looking for right now, are the contact-oriented guys. And so that's a plus. Yes, you're not going to be getting the big home run numbers from this guy, but hopefully maybe with a little more development, he can find a way to have that. And so we're going to go over his standout stats really quick. And so his first standout stat that I have is his zone contact percentage. Again, this is another instance of his contact heavy approach. He is in the 76th percentile of zone contact percentage, which means any pitches that are in the zone that he's swinging at, he's making contact with 76% of those, or he's making contact with 86.34% of those, which is in the 76th percentile. So he's upper fourth of the minor leagues last year in doing that. And then he also has a 21.5% whiff percentage, which also was the 76th percentile. So obviously big numbers there. The Rockies are clearly looking for guys that do not whiff a ton and that can make contact. And so this guy having a high in contact zone contact percentage, plus that whiff percentage being pretty good, obviously going to be a good thing that the Rockies need. And the other few standout stats I've got for him, he crushed four-seam fastballs and cutters. Specifically four-seam fastballs, let's look here. His four-seam fastball, he had a 378 expected WOBA, which is the weighted on-base average. It's just a cumulative stat that tries to combine average on-base and slugging all into one stat. And so 378 is a pretty good mark for it. He had a 462 expected slugging percentage with a 43.75% hard hit rate. So again, hit it very hard, had a very good year against the four-seam fastball, which obviously is great because you're going to see more four-seam fastballs than many other pitches. So him being able to crush the fastball is massive. And then another thing is he's good against the cutter as well. So against cutters, which is just, again, another type of fastball, he had an expected WOBA of 393 with an expected slugging of 537. And so that's obviously, again, that's even higher than the four-seam fastball with a 41.46% hard hit percentage. So again, great numbers there. Again, and all of this, again, he is doing this at the minor league level, but he's doing it in the first place. So that means that he has some room to hopefully bring that to the Rockies minor league system and hopefully therefore make it on that major league roster and be able to continue doing that at the major league level. And then another standout stat I have with him is he has a 25.6% pull air percentage. And so pretty much he's pulling fly balls in the air, which usually for most guys, that's going to be where they have, their power. That's where you're going to be hitting your home runs, or mainly to the pull side, especially as a lefty. And he was in the 87th percentile. And so again, being in that upper echelon of hitters, being able to pull the ball in the air is going to be big, especially Coors Field is it's a nice lefty ballpark. You got a big wall out there where you can hit the ball off the wall and get him back in, or just hit home runs. Obviously with elevation, that'll help too. So having some nice fly ball hitters could be, pretty beneficial for the Rockies, especially as a lefty. And so that's pretty good. Other notes, he is currently now, because he's a prospect again and he had no major league time last year, he is now currently ranked as the Rockies' 29th prospect. And so that just shows you, that's how highly regarded, at least for Rockies standards, that he is going to be now. He's, in the top 30, which, that's not super high, but also being in that top 30 in the first place, that's a pretty good get. I think that's a good get for, Chivilli is pretty good, but, I think he just struggled at Coors Field a little too much, and so hopefully a change of scenery for him can end up being good. But for this guy to come in, hopefully being ranked highly on the Rockies farm system, will be able to evaluate him a little better and get, good numbers from him. And other things I've got. So yep, he's like I said, he's a contact-oriented lower power hitter, which is totally fine for what the Rockies are clearly trying to look for. They're not prioritizing power right now. They are prioritizing the contact, the low strikeout rate, and the high walk rate, which this guy has proven that he can do. And in terms of his expected batting average, I have a heat map over here that I've got looking at it, and according to this, he's a pretty decent low ball hitter, which I think, give or take, that I think it's good to have hitters that can hit in all quadrants of the zone. Obviously, that's the goal, but him being a lefty, I feel like a lot of lefties, just depending, you don't know if they're going to be good low ball hitters, and so at Coors, especially because balls are going to not break as much. Maybe being a low ball hitter maybe he'll be able to raise the higher ball a little, like his average against higher pitches better, because he'll be able to recognize them a little bit better. And the low ball pitches, maybe he'll still be able to hit them pretty good. But yeah, his zone is pretty solid with the low ball here, which, always good. He does struggle a little bit with the high pitches, but again, I think that's just maybe his approach is slightly off, and hopefully with the Rockies coaches down at the minor league level can get to him and find a way to maybe shorten his load or shorten his swing to where he can get to those high pitches and work off of that. But again, him crushing the fastball, that just tells me he must be hitting them when they're in the zone and hitting them low. So that's pretty solid. And so you gotta like that. So, and that's kind of all I got on him today. Overall, again, I said he's a solid prospect. I think he's a solid get for the Rockies, just more first base depth, which they clearly are lacking at. And they clearly do not have a glutton, I guess, of first base prospects or players other than, Condon, who is still in Double-A right now, though. So that's the thing, is that this guy's going to be starting in Triple-A. And I could see him at spring training battling it out with Blaine Crim and Troy Johnston if the Rockies do not sign another first baseman. And so we will just have to see where that goes and what comes from that. But that's all. Like that's overall what he's going to be looking at. Is he's going to be just more infield depth, more first base depth. Which the I think the front office is pretty clear that they're pretty much looking for a stopgap first baseman right now, looking for someone that can just bridge the gap until Condon is ready. But again, Condon, he could play some third too, so if you need him to play some third, you can move him there. But that's totally up to what the front office wants to do. But I do think that right now he's looking to be a first baseman. But overall, I think Ty Rumfield is a solid overall prospect. Again, contact-oriented. We like that because that's what the Rockies really need. And so, but other than that, that's kind of all I've got on him. Hoping that this trade will work out for the Rockies. Hopefully that he'll be able to succeed in our minor league and then therefore our major league roster, because I always like to see good players coming from the Rockies on the team. So and this would be one of the first trades that the new front office has made, and so hopefully we can get a win in that favor too. So that'd be pretty cool. But other than that, that's all I've got for this video. Thank you all so much for listening, and as always, go Rockies. All right, bye.